And there is a new development tonight surrounding the Columbia University professor Rashid Khalidi. Now, thanks to the Committee for Accuracy in Middle East Reporting in America, Hannity and Combs has obtained a 1991 article that Khalidi wrote in the Middle East Report. It is an obituary of sorts for this man named Abu Iyad, otherwise known as Salah Khalaf. Now, Khalaf was a member of the PLO, but he's also been implicated as a member of Black September, the group that orchestrated the terrorist attack at the 1972 Munich Olympics, which resulted in the murder of 11 Israeli athletes. Black September has also been blamed for a 1973 attack in the Sudan that killed 2 U.S. Embassy officials. In the obituary written by Khalidi, he makes no mention of Black September or any role that Khalaf in any sort, that he's a terrorist and this was a terrorist attack, and instead praises him as, quote, somebody who will be sorely missed by the Palestinian people to whom he has devoted his life. Now, as we showed you last night, our own Griff Jenkins tried to speak to Professor Khalidi, if you want to call him a professor, but he wouldn't talk to us.
Professor Khalidi? Hi, Griff Jenkins with Fox. Can I ask you a quick question?
You cannot ask me.
Could you just tell me, what's your relationship with Senator Obama? So we can clarify it, sir? I apologize for interrupting, but you become the centerpiece of the election. Will you at least call for the LA Times to release the video? What was said? What was said at that speech? Will you talk to us?
I will not talk to you.
Were you the spokesman for the PLO? Will you confirm that? Okay. You're at the center of the election, sir. Just some quick clarifications and we'll leave. Okay.
All right, so Khalidi isn't talking. The LA Times will not release the video showing Senator Obama at Khalidi's going away party. And real questions remain about just how close Obama is with this man who seems to repeatedly praise terrorists. Joining us now is former CIA director, venture partner with Vantage Point, and McCain advisor James Woolsey is with us. All right, I want to just lay more of a foundation here, because Khalidi also thought at the formation of Israel, he said that's a catastrophe. He was a PLO spokesman for Yasser Arafat at a time when they were viewed by our government as a terrorist organization. I mean, it doesn't get any more anti-Semitic than that, does it?
Not really. This was late 70s, early 80s, I think, when Mr. Khalidi was the director of Wafa in Beirut, which is the Palestinian press propaganda organization. He says he was not an employee. Maybe there was some other arrangement, but from everything that appears, he was a director of that organization, and then came back to the United States, I guess, in the early 80s.
Well, I want to just remind everybody why this tape is so important, because on top of Reverend Wright, on top of Ayers and Bernadine Dorn and Father Flager and all of this, last night on this program we also obtained a copy of this book, what you see right there. This is a book written by Bernadine Dorn and by Bill Ayers, who bombed the Pentagon and Capitol, New York City Police Headquarters. They're unrepentant. They brag about it. Ayers does when he stomps on the American flag, guilty as hell, free as a bird, what a great country. But this book, sir, is dedicated. He was at this dinner with Khalidi. This book is dedicated, at one of the dedications, to Sirhan Sirhan, the assassin of Robert Kennedy. And in this book it also goes on to say, our final goal is the destruction of imperialism, and socialism is the opposite of capitalism, imperialism. Why do you think that more people aren't as concerned about this as I am?
Well, this is an odd set of relationships and a kind of an odd neighborhood maybe in this particular part of Chicago. You have Mr. Ayers and Ms. Dorn, who, as you said, not only were terrorists back in the 60s, but still say, at least Mr. Ayers does, that his great regret was that he didn't set off more bombs.
And he doesn't regret doing it even today, and Obama's still friends with him.
Right. And
he pals around with him.
It's hard to tell exactly what their relationship was, but at least they served together on the Woods Foundation board. That's clearly known, and one of the grantees was Mr. Khalidi's American Arab Action Network, and the other was Reverend Wright.
I'm looking at it right there. There's this guy started his political career in that terrorist's house. He started it in that man's house, a guy that stomps on the American flag, admits and brags about bombing the Capitol and the Pentagon. I can't fathom, if you would have told me 2 years ago on paper that somebody could be elected and be friends with all these radicals, Sean Hannity, I think I studied politics well, I wouldn't have believed it. But we're on the verge potentially of doing that?
Well, this would be quite a neighborhood to go trick-or-treating in, wouldn't it? I mean, if you go by Mr. Ayers' house, maybe something goes boom, and you go by Reverend Wright's house, and somebody shouts, "Goddamn America!" I mean,
forgive my Halloween voice tonight, but
sure,
look,
Alan.
If I could produce 500 people Barack Obama knows who eat apple pie, wave the flag, do the Pledge of Allegiance, and have, you know, typical, normal American lives with white picket fences, could we then say he's linked to those people and we should celebrate those relationships? You choose 3 or 4 people he knows having nothing to do with what he would do as president. If I could choose 100 more people for each of these people who he also knows, would you accept that?
Sure. I think he gets to be involved with whoever he wants to be involved with, but this is really an odd thing with him and Bill Ayers on this board together and knowing one another to some extent, and the grantee being Mr. Khalidi for his Arab American network.
But what about the grant that John McCain gave to Khalidi of $500,000?
Well,
is that acceptable? Is that okay?
The Republican Institute, as I understand it, granted to an organization over in the West Bank that did polling. That Mr. Khalidi was one of the directors of. There's nothing wrong with an organization being supported to do polling. I think the organization that Mr. Ayers and then Mr. Obama gave money to back in Chicago was considerably more
well, the difference is that Ayers did not control the money. Khalidi did control the money of that organization, and shouldn't John McCain have done more vetting before giving $500,000 to a guy who you say has all these horrible qualities, is going to spend this money for who knows what? Doesn't that reflect badly on John McCain?
Alan, I think that's silly. I think the structure was that Mr. Khalidi was one of the directors of a polling organization, and it's fine to encourage polling in the West Bank. Was the only one that was doing that. I think the French and German foundations did the same thing for similar reasons.
Mr. Woolsey, it sounds like a partisan argument, because it's not, the same standard's not applying. Khalidi was the founder of this organization. McCain did not vet him properly, gave him $500,000, and if he's this guilty of being such a bad guy, McCain shouldn't have funded the guy, right?
Alan, that's just not right. The money was not given to Mr. Khalidi. It was given to a polling organization of which he was one of the directors.
We've got to go, but Mr. Woolsey, there's one other point on this, too, and that there were 11 or 12 directors. This was not John McCain's decision, because I checked in with the campaign today, and they said it's absolutely, positively not true. In terms of him being the person that made the decision, nor was he had any awareness about Mr. Khalidi. But Barack Obama was at this Khalidi dinner praising Khalidi himself, with Ayers, with Dorn, and the other history of radicalism. But Mr. Woolsey, good to see you. Thanks for being with us.